Now let's talk about the war in West Asia. There's been a major development. The International Criminal Court has made its move. It has issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli Prime Minister has been accused of orchestrating war crimes and crimes against humanity. First, let's take a look at the warrant. It has been issued for two people, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Gallant was fired from his post earlier this month, but he was in charge for more than a year of the Gaza war. So the ICC wants to arrest him too. The ICC accuses the Israeli leaders of using starvation as a method of warfare. That is a war crime. And the ICC says both Netanyahu and Gallant are criminally responsible. The court chamber also accuses them of crimes against humanity, like murder, persecution, and inhumane acts. There's a legal definition for all of these terms. The ICC explained their reasoning in a statement. But let me read out one portion which sums it up. The chamber found that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the lack of food, water, electricity and fuel and specific medical supplies created conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of part of the civilian population in Gaza, which resulted in the death of civilians, including children, due to malnutrition and dehydration. Now, this is the operative part. This is why the ICC wants to arrest Netanyahu. The Israeli Prime Minister lashed out at the warrant, calling it antisemitic and saying that it would not deter him.
This is an anti-Semitic act that has one goal, to deter us from exercising our natural right to defend ourselves against our enemies who rise up against us to destroy us.
No biased anti-Israel decision in The Hague will prevent the State of Israel from defending its citizens. Israel will not recognize the validity of this decision.
Netanyahu says that he will continue to conduct the war as he sees fit. He says the ICC warrant won't make him change his approach. So can the ICC really do anything to force his hand? Not exactly. The ICC doesn't have its own police force. They can't send officers into Israel and slap handcuffs on Netanyahu. So the Israeli Prime Minister is safe as long as he remains in Israel or in countries that don't accept the ICC. There are 124 countries that are a party to the Rome Statute, the law which empowers the ICC. Now, these are the countries that accept the ICC's jurisdiction. So they are obligated to arrest Netanyahu if he enters their territory. So technically, Netanyahu's travel options just became very limited.
This decision is a binding decision, and all states parties of the court, which include all members of the European Union, are binding to implement this court decision.
Netanyahu can't step foot in Europe anymore, or in Australia, New Zealand and Canada. Most of the West is effectively shut off. It's just the US left. Washington is furious. President Joe Biden issued this statement. He called the warrants outrageous. He said the US would always stand with Israel against threats to its security, and said that there was no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. The last part was a reference to yesterday's other warrant, the one against the Hamas leader Mohammed Deif. Now, the ICC wasn't just focusing on Israeli crimes, it was investigating Hamas as well. The top Hamas leaders like Yahya Sinwar, Ismail Haniyeh and Mohammed Deif. Sinwar and Haniyeh are dead. Their deaths have been confirmed. Israel says it killed Deif as well. This was months ago, but his death hasn't been confirmed yet, which is why the ICC has issued an arrest warrant for him as well. The US says the ICC is trying to draw parallels between Israel and Hamas to show that they are equally brutal. But the warrants don't really say that. The ICC has accused Israel of starving civilians, and it accused Hamas of murder, rape, torture, and extermination. They have been charged with different crimes, but the US doesn't care. They are looking for any excuse to exonerate Israel and Netanyahu.
Let me just say more broadly that we fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter.
The U.S. claims there were process errors. It says the ICC doesn't even have jurisdiction because Israel isn't a member of the ICC. But this didn't bother Washington in the past. When the ICC issued a warrant against Russian President Vladimir Putin, Russia isn't an ICC member either, but the court issued a warrant for Putin last year, and the U.S. was jumping with joy at that. Biden called Putin's warrant justified and said it made a very strong point. But now that it's a U.S. ally in the dock, Washington suddenly cares about things like jurisdiction and process. It's standard American hypocrisy. The U.S. will probably try to undermine the ICC. They may go after it with full force next January after Donald Trump comes to office. Trump has sanctioned ICC prosecutors in the past, and he's already preparing to do so again. His team has already issued a threat. Hours after the ICC warrant, so Netanyahu may not be stopped from going to most Western nations, but he'll always be welcome in the U.S., no matter who is in charge.